Up there. You were given a whole bunch of questions, you narrowed it down to 2 questions.
Many of the questions have been answered.
What are you afraid of having an open dialogue?
My question has not been answered. May I have everybody's attention, please? Okay, we were invited here this evening. We are volunteering our time to be here. This is no, I understand that. I understand that. I'm asking you to please be respectful of the process that we have set up this evening, and we're going to continue forward under this format. Ma'am, we'll take your question next door if we could, please.
Sir, respectfully, I cannot understand how this vast number of people can get their questions answered around 3 little tables. And it would be just makes much more sense if we can have an open forum and hear each other's questions.
Okay, I appreciate and respect that.
Just give them 2 minutes to answer, not a long answer.
No, we're gonna each answer will take more than 2 minutes. So again, please be respectful of the format that we have. We will do our best to answer your questions as best we can.
Are you
For
stay all
those
night?
questions that we can't get to, we'll certainly do our best to respond to those after this meeting. So, Charlie, if you're ready, I have a question for you. What is the life expectancy of the caps at the fields? And are they eroding since there is continued contamination / seepage? Here's the question if you'd like to.
So I guess I want to answer first if the cap is eroding. I think that's the primary concern, is that there is continued contamination and seepage. And first I want to say that there is not continued contamination or seepage at the site. The way that the cap I believe there's a cap on area C, and there are soil covers on area A and B. And so the way that they're designed for area C is that there are the horizontal drains that are draining water from the ash. And so there is a collection system. The collection system was deliberately designed to do that and carry water from the area C to the Hampton Road Sanitation Department. And so there is not continued contamination at the site. There's not continued contamination leaving the site based on what we understand about the site now. And there is the continued protection of human health and the environment because one, there's no direct contact with the fly ash because of the caps and cover. And there is no one there that is drinking private or well water. So that everyone in the area is on public water. In terms of the life expectancy of the caps at the fields, I don't have a direct number for that off the top of my head, but that is something that I can provide for a recap. Maybe Charlie can talk about.
So the idea with those covers and caps is that with proper maintenance, operation, maintenance, and monitoring, that they would last in perpetuity, and if because their soil covers are on top of those, there's 2 feet of soil on top. If it's properly maintained, that cover would be, it wouldn't erode off, it would be maintained, and that the direct contact with anything underneath would be maintained for as long as those covers are maintained. So
well,
that's the idea of doing that, and it's the same idea with any landfill anywhere in the country.
There was a Daily Press article in May of 2018 stating, by Dave Reese from the Daily Press, stating that you did confirm seepage around the soccer field site, and that you were using new installed wells to determine whether from site A, the soccer fields, whether you needed to divert that water to HRSD, like you are doing now at the softball fields.
What was the source of your
Daily Press
in the newspaper?
May 2018. According to, he consulted with you all in Dominion.
Okay, so both Andrea and Jason did allude to additional sampling that's going on, groundwater monitoring, There is no one exposed to groundwater at the site. People are not on well water at the site, they're on public water, so there's no exposure and no risk to human health. We also monitor for whether there's groundwater to surface water discharges.
So there's no intention to divert that water from site
We don't know
A?
if that's necessary. We're collecting groundwater data
Okay, so
to
you are
find out
using,
if that's necessary or
you are in
not.
a process of determining whether
We are
that
always in
seepage-
a continual process
Right,
of
okay.
monitoring and operating the remedies that are in place and monitoring their effectiveness.
Right.
And it is part of the ongoing operation and monitoring of this landfill, just as it would be any other landfill in the country.
Yeah.
And that was my question. The reason why I asked you that question was because there is in your report, 2016 report, your EPA review, it does say that there's continuing heavy metal vanadium contamination. So my question was that coming for the erosion of the caps, or is it coming in from some other source? But you noted that there was heavy metal contamination. That was where my question was coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can follow that up if you like with Andrea and Charlie after this, so thank you. One more question, we'd like to ask a general question for Jason. The question is a number of questions from the community center around recycling of the coal ash. Can you provide an update on that aspect?
Yeah, so, whoa, it's a lot louder than the last time I was up here. So, the recycling of coal ash, so that's something that's been ongoing for a long time. The most common use is that if the ash is processed properly, it can be used as a substitute for Portland cement. So when you make concrete, you've got aggregate, but then you've got cement that goes in, and then a small portion of that can be offset by fly ash that's been processed. So we've done, in fact, last couple of years, we've done about 500,000 tons of recycling of CCR, coal combustion residuals, along our sites. And we were asked to take a closer look at the actual ponds. So the ponds that are at the 4 stations, Bremo, Possum, Chesterfield, and Chesapeake. And year before last, we were asked to do kind of evaluation of numerous options, what closure in place would look like, what removal to a landfill looks like a a modern line landfill, like all your residential waste goes to, and then what it would look like to recycle. And so we provided that report last year. There were particularly a lot of questions on the recycling, and so there was another legislative action this year that required that we actually do a request for proposals. So the General Assembly wanted to hear straight from the companies that are doing the recycling. And so we put together that request for proposals. Again, it's focused on those 4 sites and those ponds, and sent that out, got responses, reached out to the American Coal Ash Association, who represents all those companies, and they sent it out nationwide to make sure everybody that's in that kind of business knew about it. And then they provided bids. So we ended up getting bids from 10 different teams, because it's usually a team of companies, a total of 12 bids or proposals, because 2 of the companies provided a duplicate proposal. So they provided a proposal to do each site individually. Then they also provided a proposal to just do them all if they were all awarded to that one company. So that's why there's 12 proposals, but only 10 bidders. And so we took all that information, summarized it into the business plan that was required by the bill. That's posted on our website, so you can see that. It's dominionenergy.com/coal ash. And when you go there, there's a number of information on those sites, but also that report is there that breaks down what the results were. One of the challenges with recycling the ash, particularly in the ponds, which is not what we're dealing with here, where we have a landfill that accepted dry ash material, dry fly ash and bottom ash from the station. The ponds were a wet ash. It was actually moved out to the ponds in a pipe with water, so it was called sluicing. It's how most coal-powered stations operated for many years. And so with those ponds, the challenge is that you've got to remove that ash, you've got to treat the water from the ash, and then you have to screen it, because you've got The bigger bottom ash, which just so you know what that is, like if you put a log in the fireplace, fly ash would be the stuff that goes up the chimney that at a power station gets caught by the air pollution control equipment. The ash that's left on the bottom of your fireplace when the log burns, that's the bottom ash. So you have those two different things. Only the fly ash is what's used in cement. The bottom ash can be used in things like cinder block. So those sort of materials, and there's much more fly ash than bottom ash. So both can be recycled, but they kind of go to different markets. So there's got to be some screening, and then the big thing is that you've got to get rid of the excess carbon. So in order to use fly ash in recycling or in concrete, there's ASTM is like a standard or international organization sets the standards for what concrete has to look like so it's safe and it's strong. And so they put limits on how much carbon, how much moisture, all those things that can be in it. So they have to actually process that material. So it's a whole process. And the RFP lays that out, and the contractors laid out what it would take from, hey, you go start, they dig it up, they treat it, they send it off. Their numbers, their information that they provided. We've provided the General Assembly, and then we'll be, working with the General Assembly this year on, them coming up with what is the path forward for those 4 ponds.
Which don't include York County, right? In other words, all of the information you provide us doesn't apply to this because you're not looking at this landfill, right?
That's correct. So this landfill is not in that study. Even with the study, because the rule requires that you close the landfill or pond, whatever it is, within 15 years of triggering. Just among those 4 pond sites, if you recycle them all, only about 45% of it actually gets recycled. The rest of it goes to a landfill. And that's just because the market can only take so much. You're only making so much concrete. You maximize that. It's about 300,000 tons for a 200-mile radius around whatever site you're at. And then they'll train it to about 1,000 miles to get an additional 700,000. So about 1 million tons a year is what the market will hold. But at this site, it's not part of that study. There's not a plan to recycle that material. The landfill's already 60% capped. The plan is to cap the remaining part of it. And again, that's a lined landfill with a water collection system on the bottom that collects anything that comes through the ash, sends that in a treatment system. 30 years of groundwater monitoring showing that there aren't any sort of health-based exceedances there. And then we'll be required after we close it to monitor for at least another 30 years. And it's not an automatic stop. So you get to the 30th year, you don't get to go, all right, we're done, we're out of here. The regulations require that the permitting entity, which would be the DEQ, would have to release you from that sampling. And I'm not aware of very many sites that get out of that. It usually becomes on a less frequent basis, and there's some sort of monitoring that goes on for a very long time. So, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Any additional questions you have? This wraps up the presentation. Again, thank you for honoring that. Just in summary, I want to thank all the speakers that took time and prepared a presentation.